I'm Brian Entin in for Chris Cuomo. Happy Friday. President Trump is keeping his promise to eliminate the deadly drug cartels. Today, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, he announced the U.S. military took out another, this is happening again, we keep seeing these videos, another alleged drug smuggling boat, again in the Caribbean Sea. He says it was operated by the Venezuelan narco-terror gang Agua. This is the 10th strike in just a matter of weeks. The White House says 6 people were killed in this strike. The number now up to 43 dead total out of the 10 strikes so far. And we are now learning that the Navy is sending the USS Gerald Ford to the region. It is the most advanced warship in our fleet. And President Trump is weighing direct strikes inside Venezuela on cocaine facilities. Yes, actually striking Venezuela on the ground. He's doing all of this without the approval of Congress. So is Trump overstepping his power as president, or is he fighting the drug trade that kills millions of Americans? Let's ask our ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee, Democratic Congressman Adam Smith, and Republican Congressman and Iraq War veteran Corey Mills. Thank you both for being with me on this Friday. Congressman Smith, you are calling now for a congressional investigation into these drug boat bombings, but I do think a lot of Americans are watching this thinking, well, wait a minute, like, why don't we kill the drug dealers? You know, so many people have family members who have died, and now they're finally going after it, and they're sending a message. You see these videos, you'd imagine the other drug dealers are thinking, wait a minute, they're going to think twice about it.
Yeah, this is a dramatic expansion of presidential power, and we don't have a clear explanation for why it's being done. You know, most of the explanations I've heard have talked about fentanyl and the impact that fentanyl has had, which is certainly dramatic. People are dying from it, but there's no fentanyl coming out of Venezuela. Everybody knows that and acknowledges that. And you, in your report, you mentioned cocaine. So basically, we need a clear message from the president on why he's doing this. And then there's also threats to the Venezuelan government contained in it. So is this about regime change? And when I saw the president today explaining this by basically saying, you know, I'm killing drug dealers because I can, leave me alone, I think that violates the way our country's supposed to be run. They owe us, at a minimum, an explanation. And also, on the Armed Services Committee, I spoke to Mike Rogers, chairman of the committee today, about getting a hearing. DOD has yet to provide any evidence for exactly who is being hit and who is being killed in these strikes. And I just think there ought to be a minimum of transparency and explanation. I don't think anyone would want the president of the United States to think he has the power to kill whoever he wants, whenever he wants, without any adequate explanation or oversight. And that's kind of where we're at right now. It's a dramatic expansion of presidential power that I think there ought to be some accountability for.
Congressman Mills, Congressman Smith makes a good point that this is about cocaine, and I was looking at the numbers. I think only 10% or so of the cocaine that comes into the United States is actually from that area. 90% comes from Mexico. So why the focus here? I mean, could it have to do with regime change with Venezuela? Is there a bigger picture here, do you think, Congressman Mills?
Well, I think that we're just expanding out what we've been trying to do this entire time. You know, we've secured our borders, we've deployed our military, we've got our CBP numbers plussed up if we can get the government opened back up to get them paid. But right now, what we're looking at is an expansion of the counter-narco-terrorism operations, as well as for the FTO, the Foreign Terrorist Organization designations that the president has put forward. Now, I'm one of those who've multiple times tried to repeal the authorized use of military force. We have one from 1957, one from 1991, 01, and 02. I believe that it's an abdication of Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11 through 13 of War Powers Authority in Congress. I've tried to repeal that. Democrats and others had actually voted against that. So the president can technically operate underneath the 2003 or 2002, excuse me, AUMF, which focuses in on terrorism operations, because Venezuela does have a tie to China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea, and some of the actual militia capabilities. And Agua is, in fact, a actual cartel, which was designated as a foreign terrorist designation. So yeah, I think that it's stepping up quite a bit. If I can just finish up, I want to say, though, I respect my colleague Adam tremendously. We work well together on probably one of the few bipartisan, committees that's out there. But when it comes to this, we simply are trying to keep Americans safe and also stop some of the actual financial trafficking that goes on to fuel some of these militias, like you see out of Iran, like you see, because their current financials are getting shut down on them. And so this is an expansion to keep Americans safe, and that's what the president's committed to.
Yeah, there's just a couple things about that. I mean, this is the 2002 AUMF was about invading Iraq. So to make any connection to this, I don't agree with it. By the way, I'm with.
Well, but I mean, Democrats are okay striking in Yemen and striking in Libya and all claiming it was under the O2 designation.
I let you finish. So,
yeah, go ahead.
So 2002 AUMFs get nothing to do with Latin America. And also, if the president wants to make that case, we should see it. The president hasn't made that case yet. He's basically said, I have the power to do this because I want to. So that is a dramatic expansion. And look, drugs are a problem. Is it the position of the U.S. government now that we can simply kill whatever criminal we want to kill without any due process? And understand why the due process exists. Everyone says, well, they're bad people. Of course they need to be killed. How do we know they're bad people? That's why you call for probable cause. That's why you don't allow the police state, the president of the United States, to simply kill who he wants to kill without providing any evidence of what exactly is going on. So, whether you're a Republican, Democrat, wherever you're at on the political spectrum, unless you favor this type of extreme autocratic power where one person, president of the United States, says, I don't like you, I'm going to go ahead and kill you, and you don't get to ask me for evidence, that's something that I think anybody in favor of small government should be really concerned about.
Congressman Smith, there are these new reports that Trump is weighing now targeting cocaine facilities inside Venezuela. And he sort of alluded to in a statement today that he likely would go to Congress to ask for permission on that front. Would you say yes to that?
Well, I'd like him to go to Congress and explain the explanation. And by the way, I saw what he said about that. And he said that, and then he said, but maybe not. Maybe I don't really have to. Maybe I can do this anyway. So yeah, he absolutely should. And it depends on the evidence he presents. But going to war with a sovereign nation is something I would not support. And also, the drug thing is a major problem in this country. But it's also a huge demand problem. We've been attacking the supply in 1,000 different ways for quite some time. But look, if the demand remains present in the U.S., they find a way to get it in. So we need to focus on that aspect of it as well, and to simply hand over the power to the president to just basically use lethal force wherever he wants because we have a drug problem. Yeah, we have a drug problem. Do we want to give the government this amount of power? I don't.
Is there any concern, and this is one thing that I thought when I was watching these videos, that they might make a mistake, like they might blow up the wrong boat? Congressman Mills, does that concern you at all, or that there might be someone innocent on the boat, like maybe you've got drug dealers on the boat, but they like almost made someone come with them to help, almost like a hostage? Like, do you think innocent people could be killed?
Well, look, we saw the same thing in 03 and others where they would actually take people off the streets and try and utilize them in their cars because we had gotten used to identifying a person of interest as an individual who's a single male military age driver. So they started taking others. Yes, that is obviously a possibility. But what we're doing right now with the terrorist designation of these cartels is we have more intel that we're gathering than before. We're looking at exactly what these boats are doing, what they're loading, what they're transporting, what they're coming off with, looking at their routes towards America. And that's what's making the ultimate determination is it's based on intel. It's not some willy-nilly thing where we see a fast boat, we immediately target it. There's intel that goes into the collection of this and the collation and analyzing of this before we take any necessary strikes. And again, the president's number one job when he's elected as president of the United States is to protect the American people. That's what he has set out to do. And this isn't like during the Biden operation where, when he came in, cartels were making $500 million a year, and then it went to $13 billion a year in trafficking of women, children, as well as drugs. This is an actual issue that's now been stopped in its tracks at the border, and we're now focusing on these fast boats that actually pose a threat and also continue to fund terrorism against the West and our allies.
I want to say that. Sure, go ahead.
Sorry, securing the border makes a ton of sense. And I don't disagree that the Biden administration didn't do as good a job of securing the border as they should have. No debate in that. And President Trump came in and he took steps to restrict asylum, place more security on the border. But we are talking about what is basically extrajudicial killings in this situation. This is a dramatic expansion of presidential power that isn't necessary. As Corey just said, we've made tremendous progress on these issues by going after the problem legally. This expansion takes us into a whole nother place. And so I think we ought to be more concerned about it than some people are. And final point, Congress. Okay, great. You say we have intel. We haven't seen that intel. As the ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee, DOD is supposed to be providing this information. They're not. And I think it's a huge problem that Mike Johnson has shut down the United States House of Representatives, basically dissolved.
Well, that's actually Schumer on the shutdown in the Senate. Actually, that shut it down.
Oh boy, let's not get into the shutdown debate. Let's not get into the shutdown debate.
Look, we can be shut down and be in session. That's the thing.
We absolutely can, and I've been willing to, and there's still committees that are running.
Every single shutdown we've been in before, but this time we are not in session and we're not doing our job.
Well, then tell Schumer to stop holding the American people hostage.
Okay, I can't go down the shutdown road. I do want to ask you about something else, though. I want to switch gears because everybody's watching these videos of these drug boats being blown up, but everybody's also watching the video of the East Wing of the White House being demolished. It's been all over social media. Here's President Trump showing this new ballroom that he's building where the East Wing was, $300 million. He says it's going to come from donations. And I mean, the left has gone crazy. I saw today some people calling it ballroom derangement syndrome. But Congressman Mills, I mean, isn't the timing kind of bad? I mean, you mentioned that you guys were just debating the shutdown. We're in the middle of the shutdown. We've got people not getting paid. There's an uneasy feeling. And then we keep seeing him holding up the photos of the grand ballroom.
Well, again, I mean, this is something that wasn't just planned around the time of the shutdown. This has been in works for quite a long time. And I think what my colleagues on the left have somewhat forgotten is that we've had renovations going on since Teddy Roosevelt, whenever he was expanding out the West Wing. Or when you had, for example, in 1913, you had Woodrow Wilson, who had eliminated the old gardenias and created the Rose Garden. I mean, and there's multiple, every single president pretty much in the last 100 years has done some type of a renovation or upgrade. This is something that's definitely necessary in order to try and go ahead and start actually bringing in heads of state and others to see what America really is standing for, open up the ballroom to allow more people, to have more transparency, to have more events. I mean, these are things that are absolutely necessary. And so while the timing isn't ideal, I don't think any time is ideal when you think about a government shutdown where we have, you know, Medicare, Medicaid, SNAP, veterans benefits, as well as for our military, our CBP, our ICE, all those who are out there day in and day out. And this is where Adam and I have talked many times. One of our big things, and I won't put words in Adam's mouth, but this is something that we talk about all the time on the Armed Services Committee. These continuing resolutions, while we've done clean resolutions under the Biden administration and Democrats were fully on board, the thing that people fail to understand is that these aren't the long-term solutions. This actually prevents our military from getting new programs of record entered in, which is one of our jobs in the Armed Service, is vetting certain contracts and seeing the needs of the actual, during these posture hearings, of our military. So that's a big, you know, kind of negligent thing for us to look at.
We need to negotiate full year appropriations bills. I completely agree. You can't do it.
But listen, back to the because everybody's talking about this ballroom.
Sure. Let me.
Congressman Smith. I mean, they make, if you watch MSNBC, they make it seem like they're tearing down the White House. I mean, the East Wing is like it was built 100 years ago. It's not the original White House. I mean, isn't this kind of being embellished? Last word to you, Congressman.
Look, there is no issue in modern politics that isn't embellished on both sides, right? One way or the other. So the answer to that question will always be yes. But look, he knocked down a third of the White House unilaterally. Okay. Now, if you're changing the petunias to roses, okay, do what you want to do. But if you're physically knocking down a third of the White House, I think the position that concerns us is this is not Donald Trump's house. Okay, it belongs to all of us. And if you're going to make these types of renovations, when they made the renovations in the first place, they come to Congress to appropriate the money to make the changes. I mean, if it's de minimis, sure, but this is not de minimis. But Donald Trump said, no, my house, I want to knock it down, build this ballroom. I'm going to do it, and I'm not going to talk to Congress. I mean, that sort of unilateral action feeds into some of these other things, like unilaterally deciding to kill people on boats in the Caribbean. So that's why there is some concern about it. But heck, you want to ask me, is there over-embellishment of an issue? These days, the answer to that question is always yes. But I think this is something worth being concerned about.
And he may name it the Donald J. Trump Ballroom, by the way, icing on the cake for you on this Friday night. So Congressman Adam Smith and Corey Mills, appreciate you both very much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you. So you guys got to work out the shutdown this weekend. Come on, get it going.
Indeed.
We'll do what we can.
You guys are friends.
Republicans are ready.
All right. Thank you, guys.